There's a certain kind of power you can feel in a person, not in the way they speak loudly or command attention, but in the way they seem entirely unshaken by life. They move with quiet certainty. They speak only when needed, and when they choose to act, they act with precision. This is the essence of self discipline, not a life of rigid rules, but a mind that no longer needs to be whipped into shape because it has been trained into calm mastery. Yet, for most of us, self discipline is a battle we fight daily and often lose. We say we'll wake up early, but the bed pulls us back. We commit to a project, but procrastination whispers in our ear. We dream of a stronger body, a sharper mind, a focused soul, yet distraction eats away at our days. The Japanese swordsman, Miyamoto Musashi, perhaps the most legendary samurai in history, lived a life that answered this struggle in an extreme way. By the age of 30, he had fought over 60 duels and never lost. But what's more striking than his martial victories is the philosophy he left behind, a way of living that forged a man who could endure hunger, hardship, isolation, and battle without breaking. Musashi's Book of Five Rings is often read as a manual for sword fighting, but its deeper wisdom speaks to the art of self mastery in all things, whether that's writing a book, building a business, or simply showing up for yourself each day. Centuries earlier, Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Musashi embodied this idea, but with a sharper edge. His was not the polite discipline of a scholar, but the raw, tested discipline of a man who staked his life on his preparation. In this video, we will explore 6 core insights from Musashi's life and philosophy, blending them with timeless ideas from other thinkers to show you how to build a discipline so unshakable that your actions become inevitable. Because the goal is not to force yourself to act, the goal is to become the kind of person who cannot do otherwise. It is said that Musashi never refused a duel. No matter the place, no matter the odds, if challenged, he fought. One famous account tells of a duel in 1612 against Sasaki Kojiro, a swordsman so skilled that people called him the demon of the western provinces. The fight was set on a small island. Musashi arrived hours late, rowing himself across the water in a small boat, deliberately keeping his opponent waiting in the burning sun. But he hadn't been idle. On the way, he carved a wooden sword from an oar. When the moment came, Musashi struck a single blow. Kojiro collapsed. The duel was over. Many remember the outcome, but few think about what made it possible. Musashi did not win that day because of luck, nor because of some divine moment of inspiration. He won because for years before that fight, he had lived as if he were already on the battlefield. Most of us live as if our battles are far away. We think I still get serious when it matters. I still prepare when I have to. I still rise to the occasion. But the occasion never warns you before it arrives. By the time you're ready to get ready, it's too late. The Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not meant to make you anxious. It is meant to wake you up. Life is the battlefield. Every conversation is a duel of truth or deception. Every decision is a swing of the sword toward growth or decline. Every day is an opportunity that will never come again. Misashi's discipline came from refusing to separate preparation from life. There was no training mode, and then real life, they were the same. Every meal, every walk, every moment was a sharpening of the blade. And this is where most people fail. They think discipline is a thing you switch on when needed. But the truth is, if you are not living as if you're already on the battlefield, you are training yourself to hesitate when it matters most. Consider the archer. If he only practices in perfect weather, under calm skies, he will fail when the wind rises. But if he trains in the storm, then when battle comes, he does not even notice the wind. You can live this way too. If you are building a business, and act as if the success or failure of your family depends on the work you do today. If you are healing your health, live as if the strength you build this week will be tested in a race you must run to save someone you love. If you are learning a skill, act as if the world will one day call on you and you will have only one chance to prove yourself. Living this way changes everything. You start to make fewer excuses. You begin to cut away distractions. You feel a sharpened presence because every moment is part of something larger than comfort. Musashi was not obsessed with the battlefield because he loved violence. He was obsessed with it because it forced the deepest clarity a person can have. There is no time but now. There is no place but here. There is no one else coming to do this for you. So, if you wish to build self discipline, begin here. Stop postponing your life. Act as if the duel has already begun, because in a sense, it has. When Musashi was asked late in life why he never married, never settled, and never lived in luxury, his answer was simple: comfort weakens the warrior. He believed that a person who grows attached to comfort grows dependent on it, and dependency is a chain. Chains, no matter how golden, still bind you. Musashi often slept on the bare ground or on wooden floors, using his own arm as a pillow. He wore simple clothes, carried little, and ate whatever was available, not because he could not afford more, but because he understood the invisible cost of luxury, the dulling of the will. This principle has echoes across time. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the inner drive to grow stronger through struggle, and in his view, indulgence is the great enemy of that will. Every time we choose the softer path, we teach ourselves to expect softness. Eventually, we forget how to walk without it. Modern life has made this problem worse. Our homes are climate controlled. Our food comes ready made. Our devices deliver entertainment without effort. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with comfort, the danger is in becoming unable to function without it. The samurai had a saying: winter training builds summer victories. The meaning is simple: train under the hardest conditions you can endure, so that when life is easier, you will perform without strain. Detachment from comfort does not mean becoming an ascetic monk who owns nothing. It means choosing voluntary discomfort, often enough that comfort loses its grip on you. Here steps a small example. Most people cannot skip a single meal without feeling irritable and distracted. Musashi sometimes went days with little food, not out of recklessness, but to prove to himself that hunger could not command him. If you want discipline, test yourself the same way. Fast for a day. Walk in the cold without a coat. Take the stairs when you're tired. Each time you do, you remind your body who's in charge. Purpose is what makes this possible. If you try to give up comfort for no reason, it feels like punishment. But if you trade comfort for something you care about deeply, a mission, a vision, a transformation you're chasing, it feels like fuel. Musashi's purpose was mastery, mastery of the sword, of his mind, of his fate, because his purpose burned hotter than his desire for ease. Sacrifice was not truly sacrifice, it was investment. Ask yourself, what is my purpose worth enduring for? If your answer is vague, you will break at the first sign of difficulty. But if it's clear, you'll find that discomfort becomes almost welcome, a reminder that you are living for something greater than convenience. The modern philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb writes, "The more you are willing to suffer, the less you will actually suffer." This is not a call to seek pain, but a reminder that pain loses its edge when you face it willingly. Musashi understood this. By stripping life of unnecessary softness, he made himself hard to break. So, the second step in building unshakable self discipline is this: break your dependence on comfort before life does it for you, because the world will not always be warm, well fed, and forgiving, and when it isn't, you will want to be ready. If this resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. We explore these questions every week, not as distant theory, but as tools for building a stronger, more present life. There is a moment in the Book of Five Rings where Musashi makes a statement so simple it steps easy to overlook. From one thing, know 10,000 things. What he meant is that mastery is not the result of learning every skill at once, but of learning one thing so well that its principles spill into everything else. Musashi's own life is proof. He didn't just study sword fighting, he studied drawing, painting, calligraphy, carpentry, and even garden design. To him, these were not distractions from his martial training, but refinements of it. If you can control the brush with perfect precision, you can control the sword. If you can cut wood exactly as planned, you can cut down an opponent exactly as intended. And it works in reverse. If you are sloppy in small things, you will be sloppy in great things. The Greek philosopher Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. But there is a deeper layer to this. Habits are not just routines, they are training for the soul. If you brush past small mistakes in everyday life, letting your desk stay messy, sending an email with careless errors, putting off that tiny task, you train yourself to be comfortable with imperfection. And when the moment comes for a high stakes action, that same laxness follows you. Think of the samurai polishing his sword. It is not merely to keep the blade sharp, it is an act of respect, of readiness, of ensuring that when the decisive moment comes, there is nothing in the way. Musashi understood that the discipline required for a duel was born not in the heat of combat, but in the quiet moments, in the way he sat, ate, trained, and even tied his clothing. In our world, this means something powerful. If you want to build self discipline, treat the smallest parts of your day with the seriousness you would give the biggest. If you write, make your sentences clean. If you cook, make the meal with care. If you exercise, focus on perfect form before you chase heavy weights. It might feel slow, it might feel unnecessary, but you are training your mind to reject sloppiness, and that training will follow you everywhere. The Japanese concept of kaizen, continuous incremental improvement, carries the same truth. Even 1% better each day compounds into mastery over time. Musashi, centuries before the word kaizen was coined, lived by it. Here's the trap most people fall into: they wait for a big challenge to suddenly demand their best. They ignore the little things, then expect to transform overnight when the stakes rise. But when the stakes rise, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. The small is the training ground for the great. Consider an archer again. If he practices every day hitting a small target, when a larger target appears, it will feel impossible to miss. But if he only ever practices at large targets, when a small one comes, he will fail. In discipline, aim for precision in the smallest target you can find, because once you can master that, the bigger ones will feel natural. Musashi's life teaches us that mastery is built in the margins. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you wish to stand unshakable in the great battles, start by winning the small ones today. Musashi wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye." He was not speaking of mysticism, but of awareness, the ability to notice what others overlook, to see the truth hidden behind appearances. In battle, this meant reading an opponent's intent before their sword moved. In life, it meant seeing through illusions and distractions that cloud judgment. The world in Musashi's time was dangerous, but in one way, it was simpler. There were no phones, no notifications, no constant pull of news, entertainment, and trivial noise. And yet, distractions still existed in the form of pride, of vanity, of chasing approval, of wasting time on what did not matter. Today, the fog is thicker. You can wake up with every intention to act with discipline, and by nightfall realize you've been pulled into endless scrolling, meaningless arguments, and a thousand tiny diversions. The philosopher Seneca warned of this in ancient Rome. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Distraction is not just the theft of time, it is the erosion of focus, and focus is the foundation of discipline. Without it, even the most determined person becomes scattered. Musashi trained to pierce through distraction in two ways. He decided in advance what mattered. If you leave your priorities vague, you are at the mercy of whatever captures your attention in the moment. Musashi knew each day what he was training for, what he would practice, what principles he would sharpen, because he had already chosen his target. Distractions had less power. He cultivated presence. In his duels, he often delayed the fight until his opponent grew restless, using their impatience against them. That kind of stillness is not natural, it is trained. Musashi practiced remaining calm and alert in boredom, discomfort, or uncertainty. This made him hard to manipulate. In our modern world, we must do the same. If you wish to build discipline, you must learn to guard your attention as if it were your most precious possession, because it is. This can be practiced. When you eat, eat without a screen. When you walk, walk without music or podcasts. When you work, keep one tab open. At first, you'll feel restless. That's the fog of distraction trying to pull you back in. Over time, this practice builds what I call disciplinary vision, the ability to keep your eyes on what matters, even when 100 other things compete for your attention. Zen philosophy calls this mushin, no mind. It is not the absence of thought, but the absence of wasted thought. Musashi's clarity was a form of mushin. His mind was not cluttered with what ifs, resentments, or daydreams. When he acted, his whole mind. The truth is, most people are not defeated by lack of ability, but by the slow, invisible theft of focus. They die the death of 1,000 small distractions. Your discipline will not survive if you allow your mind to be endlessly divided. The fourth step is this: decide what matters, Cut away the rest and train yourself to remain where you are. The fog is everywhere, but once you learn to see through it, you move like a ghost, untouchable, unstoppable, and present in a way that few people ever are. There's a dangerous myth in modern self development that the key to action is motivation. We wait for the right song, the right mood, the right spark of inspiration, as if our discipline depends on a feeling showing up first. Musashi would have found this absurd. He did not train when he felt like it. He trained because training was what he was. From his teenage years onward, Musashi practiced his craft daily, sometimes dueling, sometimes refining technique alone, sometimes simply observing the world for lessons in movement and timing. He understood something vital. If your ability to act depends on your emotional state, you are a slave to that state. In Zen practice, there's a saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The meaning is simple. The practice is the point, not the thrill, not the mood, not the glory, just the practice. This mindset is alien to our modern culture, where effort is often romanticized. We want every workout to feel empowering, every study session to feel inspiring. But Musashi's discipline was not about feeling anything, it was about doing the thing regardless of feeling. The psychologist B.F. Skinner spoke of operant conditioning, the shaping of behavior through repetition and reinforcement. But what Musashi discovered is that the highest form of discipline is when the repetition is the reinforcement. You stop asking, do I feel like it? Because the doing has become part of your identity. This is where many fail. They begin with excitement, but the moment that excitement fades, which it always will, they stop. They mistake the drop in motivation for a sign they should quit, rather than seeing it as the moment real discipline begins. Musashi didn't measure his progress by how much he wanted to train. He measured it by whether or not he showed up. Every day he trained was a victory, not because of improvement alone, but because he had proven, once again, that his will was not negotiable. Here's Snakes how you can apply this. Choose the smallest non negotiable daily action. Make it so small that you could do it on your worst day. If you're building a writing habit, it could be one paragraph. If it's fitness, it could be 10 push ups. The key is that it always gets done. Detach the act from the result. You're not training to feel motivated. You're training to make the action part of you. Like brushing your teeth, it gets done because that's simply who you are. Treat each repetition as self definition. Every time you do the thing without waiting for motivation, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be, and those votes add up. Musashi's approach also dismantles procrastination. When the action is small and automatic, there's no inner debate to win. You don't ask, should I train today? The answer has been decided for years. The Roman philosopher Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Musashi decided he was a swordsman. Everything else followed. The truth is, if you want unshakable self discipline, you must stop making discipline dependent on how you feel. Train without romance. Work without applause. Repeat without the need for reward. In time, you'll find that action itself becomes the reward. And that's when you've crossed the line from discipline as a tool to discipline as a way of being. Near the end of his life, Musashi withdrew to a cave in the mountains called Rigando, the Spirit Rock Cave. There, in solitude, He wrote down his final teachings in a short text called Dokdo, the Path of Aloneness. One of its 21 precepts reads, "Do not fear death." For Musashi, this was not a poetic metaphor. It was a practical strategy. He had spent decades facing opponents who wanted to kill him. If fear took hold, his movements would falter. Even a moment's hesitation could mean the difference between life and death. So he trained himself to accept death as inevitable, not just someday, but in every moment. In doing so, he removed its power over him. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described anxiety as the dizziness of freedom, the unsettling awareness that at any moment we could choose anything and that our choices carry the weight of life and death. Most people shrink from this responsibility. Musashi walked directly into it. In battle, fear makes the body tense and the mind clouded. In life, fear does the same. Fear of failure keeps us from starting. Fear of rejection keeps us from speaking. Fear of loss keeps us from committing fully to the present moment. Musashi's method of discipline was to train as though he were already dead, which meant there was nothing left to lose. If you've accepted the worst possible outcome, then everything else is manageable. This does not mean being reckless. In fact, accepting death made Musashi more careful, more deliberate. When the fear of loss no longer distorts your vision, you can see the situation clearly. Euriceps, how this can apply to you without a sword in hand. Identify your hidden fears. Write down the actions you avoid. Ask yourself, if I failed completely, what would actually happen? More often than not, you'll realize the worst case scenario is survivable. Rehearse the loss. Musashi mentally lived through his own death in training. You can die to your fears by visualizing failure so vividly that it loses its sting. This is what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Act as if the loss has already occurred. If the fear is gone, you can approach the task without hesitation. The project, the conversation, the risk, they all become lighter. Camus, the French existentialist, wrote, "Come to terms with death. Thereafter, anything is possible." Musashi's entire philosophy of discipline rests on this foundation. If you are no longer ruled by fear, you are free to act with full force, full presence, and without the constant hesitation that cripples most people. In a sense, this is the highest level of self discipline, not just controlling your actions, but mastering the mind that commands them. Fear is the great disruptor of discipline. Remove it, and your will becomes like Musashi's sword, direct, unshakable, and unstoppable. Imagine living this way. You wake up and choose your actions not based on comfort or fear of consequence, but on what is right, necessary, and aligned with your purpose. You speak the truth without worrying how it will be received. You pursue your goals without the constant need to protect your ego. This is the Musashi who could walk into 60 duels without losing once, not because he was invincible, but because he had already accepted that losing was just another way of dying, and dying was already done. To build self discipline at this level, you must ask yourself, what would I do today if I had nothing left to fear? Then do exactly that. When we began this journey, I told you that Musashi's life was more than a collection of sword fights. It was a living blueprint for unshakable discipline. Now, as we step back and look at the path we've walked, you can see the pattern. Musashi did not separate his philosophy from his daily life. He lived every moment as a warrior, whether he held a sword or a brush, whether he stood in a duel or sat in a cave. We explored six core insights that can transform the way you live. Live as if you are already on the battlefield. Stop postponing readiness. Treat every day as the moment that counts, because it does. Detach from comfort. Attach to purpose. Break your dependence on luxury and train your body and mind to endure. Purpose will carry you where comfort never can. Master the small, conquer the great. Your habits in the smallest tasks shape your performance in the largest battles. See through the fog of distraction. Decide in advance what matters and train your mind to stay there, no matter the noise. Train without dependency on motivation. Make your actions non negotiable. Repeat them until they are who you are. Die to the self that fears. Accept the worst, and you will be free to act without hesitation. Taken together, these are not merely tactics, they are a way of being. And that is the heart of Musashi's lesson. Discipline is not something you do, it is something you become. You are not training just to complete a workout, finish a project, or win a single victory. You are training to become the kind of person for whom the right action is inevitable, the person who no longer needs to wrestle with themselves before doing what must be done. The truth is, the world quietly needs more people like this. People who are steady in storms. People who do not wait for the perfect moment. People who can act without the constant pull of comfort, distraction, and fear. And you have a choice. You can let these ideas stay here in this video as words you once heard but never lived, or you can begin today to bring even one of them into your daily life. Start small. Train without asking if you feel like it. Choose discomfort. When comfort calls too loudly, focus on the smallest act and do it with full care. Let fear speak, but do not let it decide for you. If you do this, even imperfectly, even haltingly, you will find something remarkable happening. The battles you once dreaded will begin to feel lighter. The moments that used to break you will no longer shake you, and slowly, almost without noticing, you will become the person who moves through life like Musashi moved through battle, calm, certain, and unstoppable. This is the invitation Musashi's life offers you, not to live in the past, not to pick up a sword, but to live in the present with a spirit that no longer wavers. So, which battle will you begin with today? If this journey has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and share your reflections below. We explore these questions every week, and your voice adds to the conversation. This is not just my path or Musashi's, it's a path we walk together.